Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the next edition of Burlington Matters. I am Burlington Mayor Marianne Mead Ward. Welcome. And we have another amazing show lined up for you today. This week, of course, being International Women's Day, and it really should be International Women's Month. That's kind of how we look at March. So whenever you're sitting down to watch this, get ready for hearing from some wonderful, inspiring, amazing women in our community right here on this show. And I want to introduce two of them to you right now. We have with us this morning White Eagle Stonefish, who is an Indigenous spiritual healer and teacher here in Burlington. I've learned so much from White Eagle since we met less than a year ago. She certainly is my teacher, I would say, and spiritual leader. We also have Osab Addis here, who is the engagement and outreach lead with the Burlington Community Foundation. But I also know Osab through her incredible work at the Halton Mosque here in Burlington and all of the community activities that she's been a part of. So she wears many hats, as do many of us here. So let's get right into our discussion. And I want to come to you first, White Eagle, and just hear a little bit about your story and specifically what challenges you have had to overcome as a woman.
Hi, okay, so let me see. So as a woman, and especially as an Indigenous woman, I think it's a bit of a double sword. So in the sense that first I'm Indigenous, which can be negative, and then being a woman. That says it all there. But my challenges have been being heard and being able to find my voice and being heard. And I've got to say that there are some very fabulous women here in Burlington, and you happen to be one of them, who have given me that voice, and I'm using it. And dang it, I have a lot to say these days.
You absolutely do have a lot to say. And I think that's a really important, I just want to pause there for a moment. I'll come back to you, but it's really important for women to support each other and make sure that we make space and not only invite each other to speak, but listen when you do speak. So back to you. And I know you also are someone who has the history of residential schools in your family.
Yes. So both of my parents were in the residential school. They were at the Woodland Cultural Center, which they call the Mush Hole, which is just in Brantford. And then I was part of the 60s Scoop. And so my family has had a really rough go of it. There's been like alcoholism in our family, total breakdown of communication. But through it all, for myself, I have been able to rise above it. And I think and it comes from my belief in God, creator, the universe, energy, right? And ever since I was young, I've always had that capacity to help others heal and help them to understand the energy around them and how to use it to help them heal and to live a more focused, happy life, if you will. So yeah, I mean, my beginnings were rough. I had two very dysfunctional, bad marriages. But there was a time when I woke up and I said to God, I said to Creator, I said, you know what? This cannot be it. This cannot be the rest of my life. And I sent a prayer and I said, you know what? Show me the way out. Like, show me what I need to know to heal myself. And from then on, I was just quiet and I began to listen to the universe, and I began to explore what it was to be Indigenous. I explored what it was to be, because I'm also autistic, high functioning, quite, obviously, But at the same time, so when I put all that together, autism, indigenous, and then a woman, wow, we have a trifecta there going on, right? So I researched everything that I could get my hands on to help myself heal and bring myself out of the pit. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, we're going to talk a little bit more. You've touched on some of the ways that you've overcome those barriers. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in the show. But first, I want to come to you, Osab, and ask you about challenges. A little bit about your background. Let people get to know you a little bit, whatever you feel comfortable sharing, and some of the challenges you've had to overcome as a woman and in our community as a Muslim woman, of course.
Well, first of all, I'm really inspired by White Eagle's story. It has taken me home many times while I was with you and I was following it. Thank you for sharing. I'm really looking forward to hear more of that. Well, as a woman, I guess if to really start with, I came to Canada as a teenager in my early years of teenage. I think at the time I was about 14. And given even as I was coming in, I have to always acknowledge that I was among the privileged immigrants because I was able to speak both English and French fluently. So language was not a barrier. But later on, so as I've grown into a woman and finished my education and started working and became a young mother, I have chosen Burlington as a home to raise my family. And with it came with many challenges. But more importantly, as I found my positionality in the society and what that really entailed, as we all know, we all carry a story of our own, a very unique one, mine of which is retrieving or always bouncing back to faith to get through many challenges that included work schedule, being overworked, being a young mom in a predominantly less diverse environment at the time, and just coping with all of that, and then always trying to find your position in the society. So that to me was the big challenge at the time, and still is in different ways. But as I've taken on a role of a young working mom, I realized that that was not enough to get through raising my family. So I have resorted more into building my community, so that, as we all know, it takes a village to raise a child, or in this case, you need your entire community to raise your family. And that's where my active role as a community service has begun. I think that was about 9 or 10 years ago. So that's just an initial breaking of the ice kind of introduction, but I'm very sure we will have much more.
Oh, yes, we do. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I know I've really enjoyed the times I've visited the Halton Mosque, and you especially have made me feel so welcome, and the whole community. It's been great. I want to come back to you, White Eagle, because you and I first met at a moon ceremony on a mutual friend's backyard up in the rural area where you can light fires. And I know I want to ask you a little bit about how that came to be, what prompted you to do that, and a little bit about what those moon ceremonies are about. And we've got a community one coming up, which we'll talk about as well, so people can pencil in the date on I believe it's the 20th of March. But yeah, tell us a little bit about the moon ceremony.
Okay, so the full moon ceremony is really, well, for me, because I'm a healer, it's about letting go of the negative energy that you picked up during the month, and then bringing in the good energy from the creator energy. So how it began is I met this woman. her name is Julie, as you know, that's our friend. And we were sitting around the campfire, and her husband were talking with me about how my life was and the different things that I could do. And so she was like, "Oh, I would love to have something here on the farm or at her home." And I said, "Well, you know, I could do a full moon ceremony." And she's like, "Oh, what is that?" So I explained to her how I do it, and I said, "I would love if you would like me to do it. I could come and do it." She goes, "I'd have so many women here." And she was like, "I could invite the mayor, the Marianne." And I was like, "Oh," I kind of felt pressure though, because I was like, "Oh, I don't know." I don't know if I could do that, but no. And then you came, and it was actually it was a really good ceremony. And so, you know, I teach during the full moon ceremony, I give a teaching for that month. And the way that that comes in the teaching is I think about it right after the the first full moon, which is leading into the next full moon. So for that whole month, I'm going through my feelings, my thoughts, my emotions, doing a little bit of research as to what I feel like I should be saying and doing for the next full moon ceremony. And then I do it, right? And I think of the different ways in which you could take home with you and do it for yourself, like different modalities of releasing that energy and then bringing in the good energy. So, and the best time to do that is, you know, during the full moon. Grandmother moon is there, and it's a female energy, and it also has to do with our moon time, which would be called a period. And every 28 days, a woman has her moon time. And so we sit with grandmother moon, and we, you know, we drink our cedar tea, and we talk womanly things, and we have a fire, which is really fun, right? And you know, and I can start it, but I can't keep it going. So I know that you've kept it going, and Julie has kept it going, but I don't know why, but
We love the fires. Well, the
yeah.
whole ceremony is quite powerful, and we write down on a piece of paper what we're wanting to let go of, and we throw it into the fire with some tobacco. And it's the first time I heard the word "aho," and that's what you can say it more pronounced than me, but it's
Oh,
"aho." It's like it's like saying amen for us, you know. But it's another way of just an exclamation point. So it is a very very powerful way of release, and just learning teachings. You know, maybe we'll have time to come back to some of those, but yeah, just learning some teachings that I haven't heard of before, because they don't teach it in school. And you know, I didn't know any Indigenous people in Burlington. I've lived here for 22 years until I met you.
right.
You know, it's we don't have a friendship center, we don't have a gathering space for Indigenous people, but all of that of course has changed because of very traumatic and tragic events with the discovery of the graves outside the residential schools. That's what started it. And so taking some really good positive things out of these horrible discoveries and memory, and you know, the appalling history of Canada's treatment of our Indigenous people.
Yeah. And I encourage all women to come, and I also encourage the men who identify as women. I've had in Oklahoma, when I was living there, I had men who identify as women, and they, you know, "Can we come?" And it's like, yes, if you identify as a woman and you carry that woman energy, and you really feel that in your heart, then yeah. So I've had that. I've had
It's very inclusive.
yep.
And there is one actually coming up, the Solstice Ceremony, I think. I don't know if I phrased that right, on Sunday, March 20th at Mountainside. So what's just a little bit about what that's about, and then I'll come to you, Osab, about your work with the Community Foundation.
Well, the spring solstice is about,
Spring
you know,
solstice.
yep, the spring solstice. And so, like, it's like the winter is going away now, and now we have spring, and it's shedding. Well, for myself, I tend to go deeper in the winter, which means I go within myself and explore myself, and that's when I do a lot of um, that's when I do a lot of studying um, about different things that interest me, which is usually metaphysics, science, and math, and geometry, which would be the sacred geometry. Um, so yeah, so I do that during the winter. And then in the spring, because we all want to get out. So during the spring solstice, it'll be again letting go of the winter and bringing in the spring and the summer and all that fun stuff. So yeah, there is a ceremony that I do for that, and so I hope you're going to come and
I
experience.
am.
Or should
Everyone can come. Yeah, it's very inclusive. Everyone can come. So
Yep.
yeah, so back to you, Osab, and you are with the Burlington Community Foundation. So tell us a little bit about what the foundation does, and then your work with them in our community.
Well, the Burlington Community Foundation basically, as we all know, is the foundation in Burlington that attends to the most pressing needs of our community. And they're always an evolving need that's continuously happening within the community. I was very privileged and really honored when I was able to marry my passion with work. Community was always something I really deeply cared about. And there are many examples I can give as my role, but mainly it's to reach out to our community and make sure that those needs are being met. The pressing needs of our community are continuously monitored, scanned, and met in a timely fashion. Now, of course, I was very fortunate to be a woman and also report to a woman. My Colleen Mulholland is my colleague that I work with, and it's very interesting because one of the advices I wanted to give to all women is always search for a leader who makes space for other women to grow. And sort of bring the best out of every single one of us, and who has the same mission as commitment to the betterment of our Burlington community. So I was quite very fortunate, still I am, and I hope that that would be the case many years to come. Some of the amazing examples of what my role involves is, for example, we do have in the women issue-based charitable organizations that we provide grants to. And good examples of that would be Savas, Shifra House, Women's Place, YWCA. As you know, that women are being trafficked regularly. That's another industry. So again, it ties as many other areas as mental health and poverty that all across do touch women of all backgrounds and race and families. So I'm very excited in a sense that it'll be a true passion coming to work and meeting with different community members and feeling everybody's concerns would be really something I'm really looking forward to. And then what we can do about that. We also, as in foundation, of course, we do endowments and so on and so forth. But I am at the granting side of things, which is community engagement and outreach. So that's that. But what really is quite not, I wouldn't say impressive, but I feel fortunate about is being able to display all that voluntary, hard, personal work that was going on with me at the mosque, and then being able to represent that for all women, and making sure that it's inclusive and it's diverse, and it is representing the ever evolving demographics of our city, because it is definitely has become a more diverse environment. So in overall, I think, did that cover enough?
No, but it's great. And we could, I think a lot of people don't realize, especially people who don't live in Burlington, don't realize how much need there is right here in our community. And, people don't necessarily know that human trafficking happens right here, that domestic violence, and you mentioned Halton Women's Place, one of the grantors, SAVIS, which is the sexual, I'm going to get it. I'm going to mix up the acronym, but they deal with sexual violence education and helping women specifically leave situations where they've been human trafficked. And you wouldn't think that that's happening in Burlington, but sexual assault and violence intervention services, yes, there it is. That they. We have so many great organizations, but the fact that we need those organizations to exist is for women in our community. We're so glad they're there, and we wish they didn't have to be, because of the need that is driving that.
But as a foundation, Marianne, even that is just one of many other aspects. Again, due to COVID, there is poverty. Poverty directly touches women. And so being able to provide for your family, and then that ties directly also to mental health. So it's all one, it is a catalyst reaction, one leading to the other. And I think I feel very fortunate that I'm able to see all of that and then make some recommendations and always assess what are those pressing needs, but also to include the multicultural community. So there's a lot of things that really are happening, a lot of wonderful work that are always happening in the backstore of end of things, but these are just some of many amazing things.
It's great. And I think that's a really important point, and both of you have touched on it, that being a woman, you would face certain barriers, but being a Muslim woman or a Indigenous woman, these are double and sometimes triple whammies. And then if you are a woman living in poverty or, other challenges, it can be, those barriers can be significant. So it really, we really do need to help each other get through that. We've just got a couple of minutes left, so maybe I'll come back to you, White Eagle, and then to you, Osab, just in a minute and a half each or so. What advice would you give as your closing words to women watching the show about how to stay strong and how to overcome some of those challenges?
For myself, I'd have to say that everyone has a spotlight. Okay, so everyone has an energy field that is coming from creator, from the creator energy, and just try to find it. Try and discover what your spotlight is. So I say this is that go back to a time when you were like 4, 5, 6. How did you play? What were you thinking? Like, what made you happy during playtime? And even in the most darkest moments that children experience, like, because I was in multi-homes and it was very, very dysfunctional. The times that I had spent alone were the best times, right? And so during that time, like, I play as a nurse. Okay, so for me it was always about healing, right? So my advice is that when you want to know what it is that you feel like you should be doing or what you could be doing, go back to your childhood. And I'm not talking about visiting the dark moments. I'm talking about visiting the best moments that you spent alone playing with your dollies or your trucks or both or whatever, right? And try to remember how it is that you played. And when you can remember that and then you expand on that, then that's exactly what you are. And that's what I found for myself as being a healer, right? So find your spotlight.
Love it. Osab, over to you.
Yes, I'll be finding my spotlight. To me, the very first thing that comes to my mind is relationships. making sure that as a woman, you really have a mentor and someone who nourishes your personal and private development, not necessarily as your confiner, but like someone who can mentor you, who have enormous amount of experiences on their shoulders, and who you can give integrity to their advice, and sort of, after all, even as grown-ups, we always do need women who are an example to us to follow their footsteps. And so that's one. And the third one, which I think is almost the gem in everything that I hold very dearly, is faith. So making sure that when everything seems like the world is ending, when a new news comes up, like for example, when an Islamophobic activities happen, when your core is shaken, when you are just mixing and fiddling through different emotions, to always continue to bounce back to your faith and realize and understand that there are many good people around the world, and that one incident does not necessarily represent everyone that is well-intentioned. And so to me, it's always been doing that internal reflection of how do you process what you feed in and then turn it into something that is meaningful and productive and keeps you positive always, despite the environments around us.
Wow, I am so inspired. And I just want to say a huge thank you to my guest, White Eagle Stonefish, an Indigenous healer and teacher here in Burlington, and Osab Addis with the Burlington Community Foundation. Thank you for joining me. And thanks all of you for watching as we wrap up another awesome edition of Burlington Matters. I'm your mayor, Mary Ann Mead Ward. Have a great day.